Good morning, Noel. Good
morning, Swami Ji.
Good morning, Swami. Your curtain is behind you. It shows the brown coming through. Just the curtain, you just pull the green curtain a little bit.
But Noel, are you seeing the green curtain?
No, sir. Well, I'm seeing there's a little stripe of orange over your left shoulder. It looks like your green screen's missing a. It needs to be pulled.
Yes, I see that. Now, is it all right?
Yes, perfect.
That's perfect, Swami.
Okay,
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Let us start. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. The subject of my today's talk is from ignorance to knowledge. It is said that ignorance is bliss. From certain angle, probably it is true. If we do not know too many things, definitely we are not bothering about those things, so it will be a bliss. But too much ignorance is also not good. Then it will be very difficult to live in this world. If you do not know things which are really useful for your living, then it will be a sort of difficult time. This can be felt, especially I felt when I first came to this country. Before coming to this country, those who knew about this country had the opportunity of meeting them. So I talked to them who were available. Some of them told that, oh, don't bother about it. When you go, you learn everything. There is no problem. But some told that, well, you have to be very careful, especially when you speak to others. You have to be very courteous, say, sorry, thank you. These are the words you have to come very often use. Otherwise, people will feel offended. So a little bit of coaching was there. But when I landed, then it was completely different. Different in a sense, not the things that I have been told little bit. They were there, but it was more than that. So it was a sort of ignorant person that came to this country. This happens, I believe, to everybody who comes to this country for the first time. And it has happened since ages, because this country is the country of immigrants. So it has happened to a large number of people who have come. But slowly, we get adapted to this country and we become very, very knowledgeable. And too much knowledgeable in a sense that we think that we know best everything. And then probably we try to compare ourselves to be a superior person. So that also happens. So there is certain certain advantage of knowing, and there is certain advantage of not knowing also. It is better to not know many things, and it is better to know things which are really useful to us. So, especially in spiritual context, it is a very important issue. Swami Vivekananda has said, knowledge, all knowledge is within ourselves. It is not his saying, but he is saying from our scriptures, probably from his own experience also. So how that can happen? That means how we can know everything. All knowledge is within ourselves. So the mechanism of knowledge is really thought of here. That means when we try to know something, we focus our mind. And that focusing of the mind actually gives us knowledge. It happens in this way, according to Vedanta, that certain object, suppose I am seeing, we have five senses, but for example, I am taking the example of sight. I am seeing something. So naturally, my mind will try to understand it, what it is. And when I understand it, then actually I get the knowledge. So the process is like this, something excites the mind, and mind tries to figure out what it is from what is store of knowledge that is already there. And in that way, we come to know about that thing. So it differs. That means time to time, my knowledge will not be your knowledge from the same site. It will not be same. Actually, it is always like that. What I see, the way I see, what I understand may not be radically different, but definitely if we look to that thoroughly or intensely, we'll find that definitely there are differences in our knowledge about the same thing. And that is also important, because if the knowledge is same for everybody, then there is no new knowledge and there is no new discovery. And in that way, our process of knowing, the faculty of knowing will be blunt. It will not really be useful to us anymore. So the point is this, that not knowing can be not knowing properly. So it may be ignorance. So it has been said in Sanskrit, avidya. Avidya means, literally it is ignorance, misconceptions, misunderstandings, and incorrect knowledge also. Incorrect knowledge also. Those three things fall into the category of avidya. So first thing is ignorance. So I have taken that word for avidya actually. So in that way, it can be extended to, ignorance can be extended to misconceptions. Ignorance can be extended to misunderstandings, and ignorance can be extended to incorrect knowledge also. So as long as we do not have the correct knowledge, which is opposite to avidya, that means vidya as it is called, then we are really ignorant because of our not knowing the thing, and also not knowing it properly. That is misconception, misunderstanding, and incorrect knowledge. So this is the situation with the ignorance. And it has been said, as I told you, that it is opposite to vidya. Vidya is also a technical term, a philosophical term that is we encounter in the study of Indian philosophy. So this avidya, that means ignorance in brief, that I am saying, though it has got a different connotation that I explained, it is extensively used in Hindu scriptures, including the Upanishads, and in other Indian religions also, like Buddhism and Jainism also. So particularly in the context of metaphysical reality. Metaphysical reality means what is the ultimate real thing. So in this context, it is often used. Those who have knowledge of Vedanta know that the real thing is the ultimate reality. It's called the ultimate reality. That is the metaphysical ultimate reality. Anything other than it will be called ignorance. So that is the position. So it is a sort of fundamental ignorance And there are two types. That means a misconception which is really inhering us for a long time, probably from our birth, or we have acquired it by ignorance. It has been transferred from somebody's ignorance to my ignorance. In that way, actually, it is continuing. Most of the thing is like that. All the educations that we receive is considered to be knowledge, but from the metaphysical point, actually, they are the ignorance that is supplied to us, because those knowledge, especially the secular knowledge, does not give us the ultimate spiritual knowledge. In that way, that is called fundamental ignorance that we are carrying. It is useful for our day-to-day life, because if you have no knowledge of reading or driving or eating and what food is good, what food is bad, these are knowledge useful, but in ultimate sense, they are really ignorance. The reason is that this knowledge is always fluctuating. Fluctuating means today I know something, tomorrow that may be overturned. That means, oh, that knowledge is not really incorrect. It was not correct knowledge. That is always happening. Very recently, you see, somebody has pain. And naturally, you know that ibuprofen, or what is called our acetaminophen, I think, that is Tylenol. These are the very well-known medicine for killing the pain, overcoming pain. But it has got its drawback also. That means if you take a certain drugs, probably your kidney will be affected or your liver will be affected. Then actually they cause more harm than good. So in that way, naturally, you'll seek the alternate medicine. So you'll find that in Ayurveda, there is a medicine called turmeric. And turmeric, if you take, it says that, yes, it has been found in the laboratory that it has the property of killing pain. It may not be that quick relief, but slowly it will really kill the pain. So naturally, you take the turmeric. Then after some time, you'll find that, well, turmeric. In turmeric, actually, there are a lot of other adulterants, and they may cause some other problem in the health. Very recently, it has been come out that in turmeric, it has been found there is lead. So lead is not good for health. So naturally, again, turmeric has to be the knowledge that we had, that turmeric or the medicines like acetaminophen or this ibuprofen good. Actually, that is that becomes ignorance. That means we did not know properly all those medicines. So that will be our standpoint. Then again, after some time, actually, it will happen, some more knowledge, some more research will come, so something else will come out, and that also be a sort of temporary knowledge. And then again, that will be what is called overcome, or it will be found that that is also not sufficient. So in that way, knowledge and ignorance are continuously working in us. That means in our mind. So ultimately, according to our Vedanta, ultimately, if you do not have the highest realization, that means no Brahman, these things will always remain. So we'll be bothered about these things, but still we have to live. That is the point. So that doesn't mean that we have, unless we have the highest realization, we cannot live in this world. So that is, in one sense, it is true. Probably we will not be able to live properly, appropriately, or most happily, because always there will be these botherations will be hunting you. So naturally, we need to know avidya, that means ignorance, and we have to handle it properly. That means we can utilize our knowledge appropriately. So when there is pain, we can really, for temporary we can use the medicines that has been prescribed, but probably we shall stop as soon as it is not necessary. So in that way, get rid of the long-term, what is called side effects. So that is a knowledge, and this is also in the realm of avidya, that means ignorance, but we take the help of this to get rid of the temporary problems. So that is very useful way of handling ignorance. So it has been said, I have given a talk on these three gunas last time, and in three gunas we have seen that yes, all the three gunas fall into the category of this ignorance, but definitely there are gunas which are really called sattik guna, sattva guna. That has been in Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere. We find that there is a catalog of certain what is called gunas, which are known as sati. They also fall into the category of ignorance, but by taking the help of those sattvic gunas, we can have the ultimate knowledge, that means highest spiritual knowledge. So in that way, it is very important to know which ignorance is good and which ignorance is bad. So that is called, that is the whole purpose of what is spirituality. That means those who are involved into practice. So this ignorance, that means avidya, has been said, as I told you. The word vidya is derived from the Sanskrit word vid, which means to know, to perceive, to see, to understand. Therefore, avidya means not know, not perceived, not understood. So in that way, this ignorance can be understood, should be understood for our own benefit. What to give up, what knowledge has to be given up, and what knowledge has to be acquired, we can really figure out. Again, we see that according to our Yoga Sutra, that means Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it is said that they fall into the category of pain. That means they cause pain. That said, ignorance is taking that which is non-eternal, impure, painful, and non-self for the eternal, pure, happy, and self. Self means Atman. So that is a very, as you know, the Yoga Sutra always defines things in a very short term. Short term means in short expanse of words. That is why they are called sutras. So in short, ignorance is taking. That means ignorance means that which is non-eternal. Definitely non-eternal. Those who have read Vedanta and know Indian philosophy is the highest realization, knowing the Atman. That means what is Atman and what is not Atman. So non-Atman things are really ignorance. Impure also. Purity is the characteristic of Atman because it is homogeneous. Homogeneous in a sense that there is nothing except one thing. That is called homogeneous. So there is no dirt in it, as it is called. There is no ignorance in it. Whatever it may be, that means it is only one thing. So in that way, that is purity means this, there is no disturbances or impurity and such other things. So in that way also it is ignorance. Then painful also, this is from the point of view of feeling, mental pain, physical pain. There are three types of pain, as you know. That means there are causes of pain, three types, as you know. It may happen because of the body's illness, or it may be caused by other persons or other elements. And also it may be natural also. That means it is caused by providence. So in that way, they are inflicted on us. So they are painful. That means physically or mentally we feel pain. That is also ignorance. Anything that brings that pain is ignorance. Then there is the non-self. That is, as we understand from spiritual point of view, anything that we conceive or think of. And if it's not the ultimate reality, it will cause pain. So in that way, there are in Vedanta as well as in yoga, there is a lot of discussion the discussion means that there is a lot of ideas that is given to understand what is really ultimate reality, what is really real with R capital. Now, coming to the knowledge, as we see, as Swami Vivekananda has said, I told at the beginning, the process of knowledge. So knowledge actually within ourselves. So how actually this avidya can affect us? If you have all the knowledge within ourselves, affect us in this way that ultimate reality is within ourselves. But it is lying dormant. Dormant in a sense, we have forgotten completely that it is existing. So that is the difficulty with us. That is why you are suffering, or we are being born again and again. All those things are happening. So somehow or other, if you can discover, if you have that knowledge, K capital, that I am the ultimate reality, Atman, then the problem will be solved. And when ordinary knowledge K with what is called a lower case, then actually what is happening, all the knowledge that is happening, that is from the knowledge which are really ignorance in our part. So we are not getting the appropriate knowledge, we can say. That means stimulant which is entering into the mind and bringing out the knowledge from our stock of knowledge, that means from our memory, is not the appropriate from the point of view of ultimate reality. So that is the position. So we have to seek what can incite appropriate knowledge, the highest knowledge, for which we actually do spiritual practices. Teachers will say, and we read many books, scriptures, and all those things, come to know, to try to comprehend. Comprehension itself is not enough, because without experience, it will not happen. So that is why in spiritual practice, it is very important that we get the appropriate knowledge to appropriate stimulation. And it is said that, well, in this age, particularly in this age, Kali Yuga, it has been said that, well, if you repeat the name, God's name, in sacred name, it is really the best way or simplest way. Simplest in a sense that in this age, there are so many vagaries that many things we cannot do. There are many things that can be done for bringing out the highest knowledge, but many things are not feasible in this particular age, particular time when we are born. So repetition of the name is easy in this age. It is possible for anybody, anytime. So that has been prescribed by scriptures, especially in Hindu scriptures, in devotional cult, it has been said. Sri Ramakrishna also has recommended that it is in Kali Yuga, taking the name of Lord is the easiest way of inciting the appropriate knowledge. So when we repeat the name, suppose I am given a name and I started repeating, so naturally the name has got some meaning. So probably I'm given the name of Krishna. I know Krishna to the extent that I have read, I have heard, I have seen, I have visited. So in that way, all the knowledge that is within myself, they will come into play. But the point is this, because of the association of Krishna with divinity, there is slowly actually the divine aspect will be revealed to me. That means mind will go deeper and deeper and deeper. And when the mind, deeper in a sense, get more concentrated. So there is a possibility of this name, according to our scriptures and also the teachers, that the possibility is most evident or most practical, that you repeat the name and at the same time think of that, whatever, to the extent you know about that, and try to increase that knowledge. That means, or try to focus on that. So slowly you will be able to realize your true self. It happens in this way. Suppose I'm thinking of Krishna, and Krishna is an avatar, that means God himself. So I am a human being, I have certain characteristics, and in the same way, Avatar was a human being, and he had certain characteristics. And in that characteristic, he actually had the embodiment of spirituality. But I am an ordinary person. I do not have any spirituality that to the extent that this particular person or the name had. So as we continue to repeat that name, the divine aspect actually will be crossing in our mind, will play on our mind, and that will bring what is called control of the mind, which is called sattvika qualities, and ultimately it will help in us self-realization. So this is, of course, opposite to avidya, and it is vidya. That means we thinking of that object or person is definitely in the realm of avidya, but it has got the potentiality of bringing vidya. That is why they are very important, and we take the help of this type of practice for developing self-knowledge, knowledge in capital, knowledge K in capital. Another point is very important, that if the knowledge is not already there, that means K in capital is already not within ourselves, there is no possibility in whatever way you incite your mind, it will not come because it is not already there. So it is presumed it has been proved by our ancestors or this great spiritual personalities that knowledge is already within you. It is already sitting inside you. It's a matter of what is called digging out. And by repetition of this name and such spiritual practices, it is possible to bring back that knowledge which is lying dormant. So two things are very important for the spiritual seekers, that these processes that has been prescribed by the scriptures and by the teachers is the process by which actually we try to, we have the possibility of having the highest knowledge, which is really already within ourselves. And also other things that we, at the beginning we do, though it is not really fall into the category of ignorance, but we sort out the which actually can bring that spiritual knowledge, and in that way we take the help of this avidya to get vidya. Sri Ramakrishna very simply, in a simple way, has said that both are really, suppose there is a thorn which has struck you. Suppose I go to what is called pick a flower from the rose from the bush, and because of my carelessness I get stuck by a thorn, and it is really causing pain. So what I shall do? So I have to take out that thorn. So sometimes it is not possible to pick it up by finger. So naturally I have to take a sharp thing. Another thorn I take and pick it up. If it is broken inside, it is very difficult to get. So when it is taken out, actually both we have to throw them away. Then I'm cured. So this is a very simple way of looking how avidya, two avidyas, if we call it, actually can bring the vidya, that means the self-knowledge. This is the simple way of seeing how the ultimate knowledge comes to us, or will come to us, or it has come to what is called great spiritual seekers. Now that today's point is that we had one Swami, his name was Swami Adbhutananda. And he was an embodiment of ignorance. Ignorance, as I told you, he was completely unlettered. He was born in a remote village, and at that time it was remotest probably in a district called Chhapra. I do not know what is the present condition. Of course, we have one center there, but still probably literacy and such other things are quite low. And what to say about during his time, it was probably the lowest. There might have been many other places, but it is one of the lowest literary place from the point of view of literacy. And he was born in a poor family. That is another hindrance. That is another obstacle was there for his what is called ignorance. That means he did not have the opportunity of going to school or learning things. Probably in the parents actually died at a very young age, and nobody was there to take care or teach anything to him. But he was taken care. In those days, family life or extended family life was common. So his uncle actually took him when he became an orphan. parents died at a young age, and they used to tend goats and sheep like that, shepherd as they are called. So that was a easy way of earning money for ignorant person, illiterate person. Just take the what is called a herd of goat or a herd of sheep on the grazing ground in the morning and graze them and bring back, and and you get some money for your living. So they used to like that. That means they came from this type of shepherd's family. But time to time, as you know, the weather pattern changes. It always changes. Now it is little acute, or we are paying more attention to that. In those days also it used to happen. So there was vagaries in the weather. So it so happened that there is a drought in one season. So their profession was highly affected. That means grazing and all those things was very much affected. So they had to search their livelihood in other places, some other places. So villagers many of the villagers had to go to the town, and his uncle actually brought him to Kolkata. At that time, Kolkata was a very prosperous place. It was the capital of British India, and a lot of businesses. There are many types of jobs were available. Menial jobs were available. What to say about the other jobs? So naturally, an ignorant person, illiterate person, such person will do? So they will have to do some menial work. So the uncle actually engaged. He brought Swami Adbhutananda. His name, the family name was Rakturam, and it became what is called. It was shortened to Latu. So because Rakturam is a longer name, Rakturam actually means God. That means one who keeps. If in one sense, that means God is the keeper, is the provider. So in that way, Rakturam is a very good name, but because it is a long word, so it became short in Latu. So his uncle engaged him in the house of a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. His name was Ramo and Ramchandra Datta. And he was a doctor, and at the same time, he was a teacher in the medical school. So he was a prosperous person, and he needed some domestic help. So he was engaged. It was not uncommon to have domestic helps in those days. Even today also, the well-to-do person keeps domestic helps. Though they are maybe expensive now, but in those days it was very cheap. And domestic helps used to be provided with place and food and a little bit what is called pocket expenses. So it was quite affordable. And for a illiterate and ignorant and poor person, it was really a boon. So he sincerely started serving the family. And Ramchandra Datta was a great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. Great devotee in a sense that he, during Sri Ramakrishna's lifetime, publicly, in public lecture, he used to announce that Sri Ramakrishna is an incarnation of God. That was very strange thing, but he had such a conviction about Sri Ramakrishna's spirituality that he did not really, he started preaching like that so that people can come and get the benefit of his spirituality. So, being a great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, time to time, Ram used to go to Sri Ramakrishna, and when he could not go, he used to send some food or fruits, sweets, and all this to his guru, teacher. So he used to carry those things from Kolkata to Dakshineswar, about 7 miles. They used to walk. In those days, there was no, of course, horse-drawn carriages were there, but for a poor servant, that was not the way. He used to go. So he used to carry on his head or shoulder all the things that used to be given by him to be given to Sri Ramakrishna. In that way, he started going to Dakshineswar, and he was very much impressed by Sri Ramakrishna's love and simplicity. And because of this contact, Sri Ramakrishna also came to know about this young boy, completely illiterate, ignorant, and simple. So all those qualities actually attracted Sri Ramakrishna. Usually, the village boys are really usually dirty. Probably their words are not very rustic, as it is called. But Sri Ramakrishna had that great eyes. That means he could see through. In one place, he has see. I can see through the eyes of a person, the mind of a person. So he felt that this boy has got spiritual potentiality. So he liked them. And time to time, because Latu also liked Sri Ramakrishna, he started spending more time with him and used to serve him. And slowly, slowly, he started serving Holy Mother Sarada Devi, who used to live there at that time, and in the Nahabat, as it is called, because she also needed some help to buy little groceries here and there, or to knead the need the wheat flour for making bread. So in that way, the laborious works that was needed. So he used to help Holy Mother also. And Holy Mother also felt very free with him, because he was so simple. Usually Holy Mother at that time, because of the social custom, she did not meet unknown male devotees. That was the custom in those days. But he felt very comfortable with Latu, and he used to help Holy Mother also. So in that way, intimacy started growing, and it so happened that after some time, Sri Ramakrishna needed some help for his own living there, because Ramakrishna by that time has become very much spiritual, adept in spirituality. Time to time he used to go into samadhi, and when he used to go into samadhi, he lost consciousness of outside. At that time probably he used to fall down, or there's a possibility of falling down. So somebody was needed to keep watch on him, just like a child, children are always require supervision. So these spiritual persons also need what is called supervision, but in a different sense. So Sri Ramakrishna used to get help from Hriday, who was a nephew and was an employee in the temple, but somehow or other he had to go away from the temple. So he needed one person, a sympathetic person, that means who will understand him and also be helpful when it is necessary. So and Sri Ramakrishna found that this boy was really capable of doing that, because he had love for Sri Ramakrishna, and he was very strong also. Village boy, they are very strong. So to hold somebody like Sri Ramakrishna, so it required some strength also. All those qualities were present in him. So he requested Ram, his devotee, that to give this boy for his services. And Ram was very delighted, because Guru is asking for some help. So it is a great boon for him. So he immediately agreed. And the boy also agreed, because he liked Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna also liked him. So in that way, everything happened in a very quick succession. So he started living with him and serving Sri Ramakrishna. And in that way, Sri Ramakrishna, seeing his potentiality, started giving him training. First training was to teach him, to make him literate. Sri Ramakrishna himself was practically literate, but still he could really sign his name, or he could really read Bengali a little bit. So, that means ABCD. That was the first things that one learns for language. So he started teaching him what he knew. So, and what is called one illiterate person teaching another illiterate person, but a little more what is called a little less illiterate person was started teaching one completely illiterate person. This happened, but Sri Ramakrishna was tired, because somehow or other Latu could not take all those teachings. That means he could not really master, because he did not have any intention to become literate. That was the main thing. If you do not have desire, you cannot really acquire anything, because they will feel disgusted with those things, though it may be useful if you do not have taste for that. So in that way, Sri Ramakrishna ultimately, after trying several times or several days, just felt disgusted, and just gave up his effort to teach Latu. But he was not really displeased with that, because he had other good qualities, and definitely he was a spiritual person, and he was following Sri Ramakrishna's instruction for spiritual practices. This point is very important to know, in a sense that sometimes we feel that, well, without education, it is not possible to be spiritual. So once we are educated, probably that may be true to some extent, but we have to keep in mind, by reading actually, it is not possible to become spiritual at all. This Latu, we call Latu Maharaj, later on he became monk also. So Latu Maharaj is a shining example of that. That means by doing spiritual practice, we see that he earned not only spiritual knowledge, had the highest realization, and drew respect from the brother monks like Swami Vivekananda and others also. And that is evident in his life. And in one place, Swami Vivekananda said, Latu is more, what is called, more important from the point of view, spiritual point of view, than us. Because he said that we had the opportunity of having education. We knew what is spiritual life, how to seek it, how to find it, how to do practice. All those things were well known to us, and we could understand properly. But in case of Latu Maharaj, it was from impossibility, actually, he came to the highest knowledge, because he did not have the opportunity of study. He did not have the opportunity of having spiritual knowledge from any other source. So because of Sri Ramakrishna, actually, he was completely turned into a highest religious person. So his journey from ignorance to highest knowledge was more important from the point of view of a journey. Swami Vivekananda is saying, from our journey from ignorance to what is called the highest knowledge. So in that way, his life is a shining example, how much actually practice can make a person perfect from the spiritual point of view. So we see that after coming to Sri Ramakrishna, slowly, we see Sri Ramakrishna fell sick and he went to Kolkata for treatment. And Latu also was always with him, so because he was serving him. And Sri Ramakrishna passed on. Then for some time he was in Baranagar and Adambazar also when the mott was established, because he had no other place to go. Though he used to go to Ramchandra's house, because originally he came there and he used to help them in their household chores also, especially when they fell ill towards the end. That means when he has become a monk, even had taken monastic vows, he actually went to serve them when both of them fell ill, and ultimately served them till they died. So that gratitude was with him, that we find in his life. But on this side, when he came to Baranagar Math, he started doing spiritual practices, and then went to different places up North India on a pilgrimage, and did spiritual practices in those places. Especially with Holy Mother, he was there when she went to Vrindavan and such other places. But when Swami Vivekananda returned, he also returned to Kolkata and remained with them. And in the meantime, just you can imagine that when other direct disciples, that means the young disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, took monastic vows, he also took monastic vows, because he was eager to lead a spiritual life. And there is no difficulty, because they grew up spiritually together. So he took monastic vows after formal ceremonies. So he was given the name Adbhutananda by Swami Vivekananda. So in that way, Latu Maharaj and Swami Adbhutananda, these are the two terms by which we see he is very well known in our order. So when Swami Vivekananda returned from the West, came back to Kolkata and started Belur Math, and also he started what is called training young devotees. So naturally, there are some rules and regulation in the Math. But Latu Maharaj actually could not conform to those disciplines. So he took leave from the mott and started living in Kolkata. Kolkata actually he lived in a very uh, uh, sometimes he used to live with some devotees' place, or sometimes he used to live in on the bank of the Ganges also. There are on the bank of the Ganges there are houses. Houses means there are places where people take bath, and also there are sheds where actually one can stay. In that way, he spent a lot of time doing spiritual practices on the bank of the Ganges in Kolkata. So in that way, he spent his time uh, exclusively in spiritual practices. And one day, during the life, when Sri Ramakrishna was alive, Sri Ramakrishna one day saw that Latu was sleeping in the evening. That means that is a good time for doing spiritual practices, but he was sleeping. That means he was asleep at that time. So he scolded his disciple that this is a time for doing meditation. Why you are wasting your time in sleep? You get up and do spiritual practice, meditate. And that scolding actually gave a permanent effect on him. So it is said, and it has been found that the rest of his life actually he never slept at night. Most of the time he was found that he was sleeping at the daytime, and at night actually he used to do spiritual practices almost throughout the night. That became his routine, unusual routine, but because of the instruction of the teacher, actually, he did not waste the night in sleep. Afterwards, we see that he spent his life most towards the end. He lived in Benares, that means Varanasi, Kashi, and he used to live. He did not live in the center there. We have two centers there, but he hardly lived there. He used to live in one place, when devotee's place, and place means even not in the place, but on the porch of that house. In that way, he used to live there. And of course, food and all those things used to be provided to him. So at his own will, he used to go to the temples and do, have spiritual practices. In that way, he had always enjoyed the liberty of a roving monk, as we see. That is very unique. Nobody throughout his life had that opportunity in our order, especially in the direct disciples. That means everybody had to do work and stay in the ashram, follow the discipline, and then preach. Of course, these are the work that they had to do. But he was unique in that way that he had the opportunity of spending the whole life in doing spiritual practices. And towards the end of his life, he was a sort of a teacher also. That means people used to go to him to learn get spiritual knowledge. And he was very helpful in that way. That means whoever used to go, he used to discuss our spiritual matter and used to give, and they used to be benefited by that. That also shows that it does not require to study scriptures to get spiritual knowledge. As you proceed in spiritual life, in this journey itself, you gather knowledge and that you can share with others. So in that way, when he became adept in spirituality, naturally, out of his experience, what he has said, of course, he had the opportunity of hearing some scriptures from others also, because he lived with Sri Ramakrishna and also other disciples. So in that way, he knew, but definitely it was strengthened by his own spiritual knowledge. And most of his instructions that he had given came from his own experiences. That means he had adapted some practices which were helpful, and in that way he shared them with those who sought spiritual knowledge. So let me share some of his spiritual teachings that will show how deep was his spiritual knowledge. He, towards the end of his life, there used to be one Swami. I had the opportunity of seeing him when he was very old and lived in Benares. Swami Siddhananda. So he was interested to take care, that keep track of him, because he used to live outside. What was his need that needed to be attended? So his health and all those things were concerned. So he was a sort of assistant to him, or he's a caretaker of him. So he had the opportunity of listening many of his words when people used to go, or when devotees used to go, when monks used to go to see him, and he used to talk about spirituality. So he used to take down all those things, whatever used to come. They are not very organized in a sense. So that is why whatever he heard, he used to take down. Just like Mahendranath Gupta wrote about Sri Ramakrishna's teachings when he used to go, but he was very organized. And himself, Mahendranath Gupta himself was also very learned. So the beautiful book, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, has come out. But Swami Siddhananda is sort of diary. That means they are nuggets of spiritual knowledge, you can say. So they later on, actually, editors tried to what is called organize them under different headings, and some of the, in some places actually we see that they are mixture of different knowledges or different subjects also. So this book is called, the book that was written by that by Swami Siddhananda. The name of the book was Sat Katha. Sat Katha means what is called spiritual talks, and that has been spiritual instructions. That will be the proper word. The spiritual instruction of Swami. That was later on, very recently, actually, has been translated by one of our Swami, whom some of you might be knowing, Swami Sarvadevananda, who is in charge of our Hollywood Center. So he had the opportunity of going through that, and he, being a Bengali, he understood some of the words or meanings or imports are from the very native, in a sense, rustic in a sense. So that require a little bit knowledge of the what is called situations, circumstances, and culture, and all those things. So here this translator was quite knowledgeable about those things. So his translation is really very good, and I can share some of the utterances of Swami Adbhutananda. So there is one chapter which is titled Maya and Avidya. Avidya means ignorance. So this ignorance, as we can read, is from the point of view of spirituality. That means ignorance, lack of spiritual knowledge. In that way, it can be understood. So Swami Advaita himself is explaining what is avidya, or ignorance. Maya, it is another name, is called, according to Indian scriptures, avidya has synonym, which is called Maya. Maya means you are seeing something which is not really correct. Just is given the very simple example. That means you see a snake, but it is not snake, it is rope. That means false knowledge. That is the meaning of Maya. So he is explaining this Maya. Maya is of two types, the bad Maya and the good Maya. What is bad Maya? Bad Maya is thinking that God is unreal and that the world is real. A very fundamental concept. That means because we do not see God, then we think that God is really unreal. That means he is not there. Atheists. So atheists do not believe that God exists there. And also this world is real. That is also ignorance. World is not really real. Nobody nowadays will say that world is real because it is always changing. Ordinary people also now understand that yes, it has got its life. That means it has come out from so many billions years ago. Now it is in the transition, and definitely there is a time when it will have to it will get destroyed, because it is happening in the whole universe in that way. But during our lifetime, probably it will not be destroyed. That is why we think that it is a real. That means it will remain permanently. Through bad Maya, a person suffers. What is good Maya? It is to realize that the world is impermanent, first take into notice that the world is really impermanent. It will not remain forever. Though it will remain during our lifetime, but it is not. Lifetime means that during this birth, I feel that it will remain. But according to Vedanta, if we do not have the highest realization, we shall be born again and again. And there will be a time when actually there will be restriction. So naturally, it will not remain forever and we shall suffer. That will be the situation. So logically and through our understanding, we have to know that this world is really impermanent. And also things that are there are not really permanent. As Lord Buddha has said that, well, that whatever you see is really causes pain. Because what you have today, you will lose that tomorrow. It happens like that. And you desire many things which you cannot get. That also really painful. That means they are there. So these are the difficulties in painful things that we go through. So impermanency of the world is what is called real knowledge. That is Vidya. And God alone is real. That is the two things. It is to realize that the world is impermanent and that God alone is real is really good Maya. To realize Him as the very nature of truth, to concentrate on how one may remember and reflect on Him, and to think of how one may perform His worship. These types of thoughts are good Maya. As I told you, these are also in the realm of Maya because ultimately, after realization, we transcend those things. As Sri Ramakrishna was a pujari, he used to do worship. But later on, his purpose of doing worship was complete. That means he had the highest realization. So, and he nearly transcended that. That is, he did not have to do the worship. But he took the help of worship to reach the goal. It helped him reach the goal, though that is a transitory thing. So he actually, in that way, he explained Maya. Then he is saying, a person's own Maya makes him restless. Nevertheless, man wants to get entangled with another's Maya. The meaning is this: man is busy with his own worldly affairs, yet over and above all that, he unfairly and meaninglessly entangles himself further by poking his nose into the affairs of others. This is a cute observation, personal observation that he acquired by in his life. That means you have your ignorance, you have your restlessness because of your ignorance, but still you actually add to that by what is called sharing others' ignorance or poking into others' affairs. In that way, you increase the burden of your avidya, ignorance. So these are practical things that we see that he shared with the devotees. In another place, he is saying, people forget their past sufferings. That is why there is so much adversity. One does not feel any misery if one frequently thinks, what was my previous suffering and what is my present state? Yet, if by God's grace a little advantageous situation appears, people forget everything. That means suffering is gone, then actually people forget that I have suffered. They think that everything will be okay and I'm okay. They immediately forget the help that others have given them. Because to get rid of suffering, many times we have to take the help of others. If you are sick, naturally you have to have somebody to take care of you, bring medicine or give advice so that you can get cured. All those things come. But after we are cured, we forget about those things. If one remembers the condition from which one has come, one feels empathy for those remaining in such state. Point is that those who are suffering, for them, actually we should have sympathy because we have suffered. So for suffering person, we should develop an attitude of sympathy. But man forgets his previous suffering and starts condemning others. Then they will say that, oh, he is suffering because of such and such thing. Probably he had so much, that is why he is suffering from stomach pain and all those things. And such things are quite common. We condemn the person's ill, what is called ill things. That means what is called things that he has done for which actually he is suffering, and in that way, we don't feel sympathetic to them. That is why the master is to say, don't ever forget an act of benevolence. As long as you live, be grateful. This is a very important advice. That means we are suffering. So by seeing suffering of others, we should be what is called benevolent. That means we have to help others or be sympathetic to them. Very practical thing. And it will fall into the category of good Maya. That is the point. So in that way, this book is very useful from the practical sense that I thought to share with you. And Swami Adbhutananda's life, as I told you, Swami Vivekananda himself has said is greater than himself because he had to travel from ignorance, total ignorance, from dark ignorance to highest knowledge. That means enlightenment, highest enlightenment. So in that way, his life is really great lesson for us. Next Sunday, we have an interesting subject. And we have a interesting speaker also, guest speaker. So that is on February 20th. The talk will be given by Charles Chatton, who is our treasurer and a long-time devotee. He is the guest speaker, and he'll speak on Lincoln's religious thoughts. Probably some of you do not know our previous Swami, Swami Swadhanji, was a great student of Lincoln. And almost every year, he used to give a talk on Lincoln and Lincoln's spirituality. And he used to tell stories about his life and also his experiences when he visited places associated with Lincoln. So we are maintaining that tradition. Charles Chatton, he had the opportunity of knowing Swamiji very well. So he also had developed that what is called love. Of course, he had love for Lincoln, but he had that they were in the same boat. That means teacher and the student actually liked Lincoln very much. So he has agreed, Charles Chatton has agreed to give a talk on Lincoln's religious thoughts. That will be the subject of talk on next Sunday, February 20th. We shall continue our services on Zoom. Our Wednesday class on Raja Yoga will be there. Then Friday, Swami Shraddhananda will give a talk on Narada Bhakti Sutra at 6 p.m. with meditation later on for half an hour. Then Saturday, I give a discourse on Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So we are still on Zoom, and hopefully we shall talk about our opening for in-person service. And the next Saturday, we have a board meeting. Then we shall decide, probably from next month, we shall be able to have in-person service with much relaxation. Om Madhuvatarithayate Madhaksharanti Sindhavah Madhirno Santoshadhihi Madhunakta Mutoshasi Madhumat Parthivagang Rajaha Madhudaurastana Pita Madhumarna Vanaspatihi Madhumagangastu Suryaha Madhirgavo Bhavantunaha Om Madhu Madhu Madhu. Sweet with the winds and the oceans give forth blessedness. May the earths and plants bring us health and happiness. Sweet unto us with the nights and dawns. May every particle of Mother Earth be charged with blessings. May the heavens shower us with benediction. Sweet unto us with the noble forest trees. Sweet unto us with the shining sun. Sweet unto us with the all living creation. Om, sweetness, harmony, peace. Thank you very much for joining. I shall, if you have any question, I shall be happy to address that. Yes, please.
Pranab Swamiji.
Namaskar, bolun.
Namaskar. Can you repeat the name of the book? You said
That book has been translated. A Bengali name is Satkatha by Swami Siddhananda, and English translation, the name title of the book is Eternal Words, Spiritual Instruction of Swami Adbhutananda. The book is written, as I told you, by Siddhananda, but translator is Swami Sarvadevananda, who is in charge of our Hollywood Center.
Hollywood. Okay. Thank you.
Swamiji,
Yes, please.
I was wondering what the meaning of Abhuta means.
Adbhuta means, that means strange, that means miraculous. That is the name of Adbhuta. That means surprise. Those words actually fit into the meaning of the Adbhuta.
I see. He was a very independent-minded Swami.
Yes, very independent minded. Not only that, he actually, they were very friendly with each other. That means he used to address Swamiji, Narendranath, as you know, because he knew him from his young days. He used to, because of his accent, he used to address Narendranath as Loren, because he could not pronounce properly. And Narendranath, that means Swami Vivekananda used to address him as Leto. That means Latu to Leto. That happens sometimes. Words get what is called, because of intimacy that happens. So they were in what is called in the same platform from the point of view. Other direct disciples who are very apprehensive, respectful, or very caring and other things, but they were chums, if you call it. So in that way, they used to look after each other. Sometimes he used to address Narendranath, and you tell that, well, it is not suitable when I am going away. So he was very straightforward in that way. And Swami Vivekananda also respected him, as I told you, because from where he had really reached to what point, it is a very strange, that is why the name Adbhuta is given. Of course, in India, you know, there are many saints who are completely literate. And from there, you'll find there are not exactly literate. There are still, recently also, there are some very well-known spiritual personalities who came from the background of illiteracy or very little education. That is not uncommon because of the practice. That shows the importance of practice.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we shall see you next Sunday.
Thank you, Swamiji.